Welcome to the Kingmakers podcast. Kingmakers is an accelerator for business buyers. We help entrepreneurs acquire their ideal business and provide them with the tools to succeed post-acquisition. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join us as we explore and unlock the secrets to successful business acquisition, growth, and exiting strategies. Hey guys, so if you're enjoying the podcast and you want to take the next step in your business buying journey, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. First, check out our business buying workshop. The Kingmakers Workshop will give you a backstage pass to a private equity firm that acquires and operates 6+ new businesses per year. This is an opportunity for you to peek behind the curtain and understand the entire process of finding, buying, and growing an online business. The workshop is limited to a small amount of serious business buyers, so you can count on it being intimate and you can plan on spending plenty of one-on-one time with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the M&A space. So go to kingmakers.co/workshop. Again, that's kingmakers.co/workshop to get more information and to apply. Second, if you are serious about buying a business, I would love to have a quick chat with you and see how we can help. Go to kingmakers.co/call, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then you can schedule a free consultation call, and we'll see what we can do. Again, that's kingmakers.co/call. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, I'm really excited about this episode. It was really good to get Hayden back on the show to give us just a great overview of different types of online businesses and their pros and cons, specifically breaking websites down into their two main components, traffic channels and monetization methods, and then ranking each of those worst to best while explaining our reasoning behind that. You'll also hear Hayden talk about our favorite and preferred types of online businesses here at Kingmakers and how we think about doing diligence on these. This episode is much less of a dialogue between Hayden and I and more of him teaching from a depth of knowledge that you can only acquire by operating for years in this space and treating the acquisition and diligence and growth of these businesses like a hobby. So I hope you guys learn a ton. Don't be afraid to take some notes. And remember, if you're wanting to buy one of these businesses and you feel a bit overwhelmed by the process, well, that's why Kingmakers exists. We would love to buy a business with you, so please give us a call. What is up, business buyers, and welcome back to another Kingmakers episode. Today on the show we have, once again, the great Hayden Miyamoto. Hayden, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm great.
And so what have you been up to? What's been going on in your life since the last chat we had here on the podcast? That was about a month ago now.
Yeah, keeping really busy. We have a bunch of deals going into sort of LOI phase, and yeah, it's been fun working with a bunch of smart people.
Awesome. So today we're going to cover some of the building blocks of online business, and for some of you, this information may seem fairly basic, but I think for the majority of you, this will be a fantastic overview of different online business models, their pros and cons, and how we think about risk mitigation and growth opportunities, and just how we think about each one of these in general. So let's let this episode kind of serve as a foundation for future episodes of the podcast, and where we'll take deeper dives into each of these specific areas. But with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Hayden, and teach us, and then I'll ask you any questions, and we'll dive into any specifics if that's needed.
For sure. So I think a good place to start is actually defining what a online business model is. And I think a pretty simple explanation is that a business model, at least in this business, is a combination of traffic channels and monetization methods. So, I mean, you have what we call the publisher model is, tends to be focused around traffic from Google, whether it's Google News or, Google Organic, and tends to monetize through simpler monetization methods like, ad networks or affiliates. And then you have SaaS, which monetize it. The traffic channels can range from PPC to organic to sales, and your monetization method typically is some kind of monthly recurring revenue, which then you have to look at metrics like churn and lifetime value, etc. So starting with that, generally speaking, I'd say most business most businesses that we're acquiring, we're actually acquiring the traffic channel, as that traffic channel can take years to grow organically. Monetization methods are a lot cheaper and faster to add. It's actually quite common for us to purchase a business and change its monetization method within 1 to 2 months. So generally speaking, what we are first focusing on is buying traffic channels. So I think it makes sense to go over some of the common traffic channels that we all look at when we're buying businesses. And I've actually kind of tiered them for people from worst to best. And I can explain sort of why I feel some are better than others. So I'm going to start with what I'll call tier 3 traffic channels. So tier 3 are free. The traffic's free. It's not very targeted. It's highly volatile, and it has a high cost to sustain. By high cost to sustain, I don't mean you're paying for each click, but I mean you might have to be constantly producing content, and the production of that content costs money. So one of the traffic channels that I call tier 3 is Facebook Organic or Facebook Instant Articles. Both are sort of in the same tier. And this is because, well, let me explain first what it is for those that don't know. Basically, it's traffic from Facebook news feeds. And the reason I feel it's more volatile is because, well, Facebook's history on changing its newsfeed algorithms has been a lot more volatile. And for that reason, I've more or less ignored it as something that I like to acquire, or something that I like to add on to a business. I do know several people that we can bring in, and we have brought into deals who specialize in this. And this one is also very hard to create. And so if something's hard to create, it's better to buy because there's also a moat. Another sort of tier 3 traffic channel is LinkedIn Organic. So LinkedIn traffic is actually, currently at least, is very easy to get traffic, especially if you're using video. The algorithms just tend to love, if you just post every day and post videos fairly often, the algorithms tend to just love you. I assume that's probably going to change because these things tend to change, so I still consider it higher volatility. I'd say if this continues for like another year, I might move it up a tier because it is decent traffic. It's actually tends to be more business oriented. And the cost to sustain is still probably, I'd say, lower than Facebook in the sense that, with LinkedIn, if you just post something, every other day, LinkedIn tends to love you. And then the third sort of tier 3 is Google News. So I've gotten many sites into Google News. Basically, you just need to publish 3 times a day for up to 3 months straight. It can be a shorter period of time if you happen to be in a niche where there's not a lot of supply. Content can be a lot shorter, like 250 words. Is generally fine. Interestingly enough, the content can also be completely unrelated to what you end up wanting to post long term in Google News. Like, I actually have gotten sites in the past, like posting celebrity news for like, half a cent per word articles and then posting finance afterwards. That was a while back.
And that's just in an effort to get them into Google News first, and then you can post what you want?
This was a while back, and this was when I was doing a little bit shadier things. But basically, we would get like Filipino writers to write sort of celebrity content, get them into Google News. Once they were in Google News, publish a whole bunch of finance, like stock articles. I'm not recommending people do that, by the way. So that's the
noted.
The tier 3. So tier 2 traffic channels are free. Unlike tier 3, they're highly targeted and they are low volatility. However, they still have a high cost to sustain. So one example of a tier 2 traffic channel would be subreddits. I'm not sure how many people have actually attempted to stay active on Reddit, but it's actually a really, really great traffic channel. It's very, very, very targeted, and you tend to have what we call the linkerati hang around the popular subreddits. So if you create value there, you tend to get a lot of links. In fact, that's one of our SEO tactics, is to sort of create comprehensive guides and then sort of promote them within popular subreddits, and that tends to bring dozens, if not sometimes hundreds of links. This requires you to be active long enough to be actually respected by the community as an expert, and you actually have to be pretty expert. It also requires a bit more hustle, and it is a bit more of a time exchange for traffic. The second tier 2 traffic channel is Quora. And it doesn't apply to every business, but it applies to many. It's very highly converting. It's very easy to rank on. It goes hand in hand with SEO in the sense that you can tend to either answer questions or even ask and answer questions on Quora. And if your answer is first, you're basically taking up a position in the top 10 of the result pages. And they're also easy to create. So because they're easy to create, I tend to prefer to create them than acquire them. So that kind of goes in as part of our growth strategy. The third tier 2 traffic channel are Facebook groups or pages. So it's slightly different from news feeds. And if we're looking at a deal that has a large Facebook group or sometimes a collection of Facebook groups, this can be a pretty consistent traffic source. And this in itself can be monetized. However, for you to monetize it well actually requires a lot of posting. When I say a lot of posting, I mean at least 10 times a day. So that in itself is an entire sort of business model. This is obviously quite hard to create, so it's something that I tend to only look at purchasing.
And when you say posting like 10 to 20 times a day, are you talking about just like admins in the group or just the community in general could also cover that post amount?
I mean, the community can cover it, but realistically what you want is you want people clicking through and going to your site, right? And because your site is going to show how you monetize, right? There may be instances where, you really just want to sort of grow your brand a little bit, in which case, sure, you can just post interesting things. But generally speaking, a lot of these things will be like, you buy a video game community, and that part of that video game community, involves you posting frequently to get on Google News, right? And so you link to every piece of content that you post, that type of thing. And sometimes you link to old content, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So in between tier 2 and tier 1, I have tier 1.5, and this is basically free, highly targeted, not so volatile, but not highly volatile, a low cost to sustain, but it's costly and hard to create, and that's YouTube, and other video sites, but really it's mainly YouTube. And with YouTube, it's less competitive than obviously Google Organic. There are more ways to get traffic. It's not just based on search and having the right keywords. It's also heavily based on related videos. You have other benefits in other traffic channels if you create video, right? That's in Google itself. The videos itself can just rank. Again, what I had mentioned with LinkedIn, Facebook also gives some preference to video. However, I wouldn't consider it tier 1 for two reasons. One, it's hard to send that traffic off of YouTube into your site and monetize it. And two, it's high quality videos, which is mainly what we want to do, are expensive to create. So they're tier 1.5. There are ways and there are business models that allow you to create decent quality videos cheaply. And that's something we can probably get into in the future, which if you are able to do like templated videos that effectively are sort of like curated videos, let's say like a top 10 that looks to, let's say a video series that looks to like get off, a lot of the keywords behind like a big name like Elon Musk, right? So you have like top 10 lessons from Elon Musk. And then you have a Filipino literally like curate the internet and splice everything together, and you record, a 30-second intro. That's actually a really cheap video to create that can still be fairly high quality. And if you are able to do that, I would probably put YouTube into tier 1.
But you still would have an issue driving people to any website or anywhere off YouTube, though.
Yes, it's still an issue. It just converts worse, right? Than actually owning the property that you're being promoted on. It converts worse, but if you happen to get a ton of impressions from it, it can be worth it.
Yep.
And then tier 1 traffic channels are free, highly targeted, medium to low volatility, a low cost to sustain, and also generally hard to create. And hard to create, I mean, the creation difficulty isn't so much about the traffic channel so much as this being tier 1 for me wanting to acquire it as opposed to create it. And there are two traffic channels, and these are predominantly the traffic channels we choose to use, and that is SEO and email. So we can dig in a bit on each of those.
Yeah, do it.
So for SEO, basically, I think everyone here knows what SEO is. But basically, when we look to acquire a business because of its link profile and because of its content, you need to look at those two specific pieces, right? So you have to do a content analysis, and we look at that. Our diligence is sort of split into two pieces, two sides there. So one is the risk of it going to zero, basically if you do nothing. And the other is the opportunity for growth. Do you want me to dig into this, or are we looking at more of a sort of overview of everything here?
No, let's dig in a bit.
Okay. So if I'm looking at a property to buy, like I said, I'm looking at the content and the backlinks. And in both cases, my first step, and this is usually done pre-LOI, is to look at the risk, right? So content risk would be if there's low quality content, if there's duplicate content, if there's thin content, if there's over-optimized content, if I find that the content across landing page is undiversified, meaning all of the traffic across landing pages is under not diversified. So if most of the traffic is coming to one or two pages, there's a fairly large risk of you dropping a few positions and therefore losing most of your traffic. So that's the risk side. And again, it's more about if I buy this website and I literally don't do anything to it for the next 3 years, what's the probability of it having a severe drop, right? And on the backlink side, I'm looking at spam, I'm looking at over-optimization of anchor text, I'm looking at the link velocity of my site versus the competitor sites, which is basically how many links is this site naturally getting on its own because it already ranks for stuff versus its competitors. I'm also looking to make sure, like with spam, there is an allowable amount of spam. Like pretty much everything will have some spam, and it may not have anything to do with the actual owner of the website. So what I'm mainly looking for is, are there specific links that I don't feel are natural that are actually propping up this site's backlink profile? And same goes for identifying PBNs, identifying paid links, because at any point some of those could just be removed.
Yep, makes sense.
And again, that's just the risk analysis, and that happens pre-LOI. Post-LOI, we do more of a growth analysis, right? So specifically on content, one of the first things we do is we look at a content gap analysis, right? Which is basically, I look at my domain. Let's say my domain has a domain rank of 60, right? By my domain, I mean the target domain to acquire. And I'll take 10 competitors and who have a domain rank of say 55, right? And I'll do a content gap analysis to see what keywords are they ranking for that I'm not ranking for, right? After that content, there might be 1,000, there might be 2,000, right? After that analysis, I'll take a look to see, okay, have we actually written content for these pages? And is there a reason we're not ranking for it? Or is it actually we just haven't written the content? And usually it's the latter. So basically that gives you an idea. We can compare that in an apples to apples comparison, versus our average deal, and basically tell partners, hey, this is an A, or this is a B, right? Or this is an F, right, compared to sort of the average deal. And we actually go pretty in depth. So our pro team actually works on the deal post LOI first and figures out the revenue per visitor for each type of content. And then we actually sort of try to project out the ROI on content. There's also like SERP Ctr Optimization, which is effectively going through Search Console, checking for examples where your click-through rate is fairly low for your position, and attempting to rework your page titles and your meta descriptions so that your click-through rate increases, which almost always gives you also a ranking increase. And the easiest way to look at that is we basically identify the pillar content of a business. We take a look at each of their titles and meta descriptions, and we just see how well optimized they are. And again, you need access to Search Console, so this is post-LOI. Another part of that is answer box optimization. So answer boxes are those sort of featured snippets at the top of the SERPs. And basically, I want to look for, whether there are other competitors that hold them that I can steal from. And actually something that we also look at in the risk side that I didn't mention is if we actually already hold answer boxes, those answer boxes have a high likelihood of disappearing. Let's say within a year, I'd say it's close to 100% that someone else will take it, at least for a period of time. Mm-hmm. So I actually look at that as a risk. And likewise, I look at ranking number one for a keyword as a risk, more so than an opportunity.
Because it can only go down.
Exactly. I mean, there are benefits to ranking number one, right? Because ranking number one means you tend to actually get more links. Ranking well is the best form of link building, right? Because more people find you. So that's the one benefit, but I tend to think that like being number one is more than a risk than a benefit. Other sort of areas of growth within content is like seeing how well content overall is siloed and interlinked. Are we linking to the pages that actually matter? Most sites are not.
What do you mean by siloing exactly?
Siloing means basically making sure that like types of content are always sort of linked to each other, right? Mm-hmm. So if I have a site that's about widgets, right, and this site has categories around large widgets and small widgets and blue widgets and red widgets. Siloing would be making sure that all of my red widget content links to each other, and all of my large red widget content links to each other. But my red widget content doesn't necessarily link to my blue widget content.
And is this something that Google is searching for or is looking for you to optimize? Yeah,
Google wants to see that you are a comprehensive resource on a topic. And so if you're a site that just has like one page on everything, you're not a comprehensive resource on a topic. You're more breadth than depth, and they want to see depth, and that's what siloing helps you do. And in many cases, if you already have a page of pillar content that's ranking for red widgets, and you want to rank it better, you can just write new content around very specific red widgets, whether it's red widget reviews or whether it's more specific posts on red widgets under $500 or large red widgets in South Africa. Right? The more you write and then interlink back up to red widgets and silo together, the better red widgets as a parent topic will rank.
Makes sense. Yeah, again, for people listening, I know like some of this stuff can sound complicated and technical and just hard to grasp, but what's interesting is you can always just go back to thinking from first principles and put yourself in the shoes of like Google. And as Google or any company for that matter, all you want to do is make sure you're providing the highest quality, like valuable content to customers, consumers. And so thinking from first principles, like you said, Hayden, you don't want to, if you're creating a site on like how to do push-ups or how to, have a comprehensive workout or something, you don't want this breadth of knowledge like exclusively. You want to have depth and have that be well organized and consistently updated. So I find that just going back and thinking from first principles often helps you grasp a lot of these more in-depth concepts, quite a bit faster.
And these are, if you want to own a business that gets traffic from SEO, I do think this is required knowledge. And that's actually why we have training specifically for everything that is related to OnPay. So all of these items, we actually have training for our partners for. So this is quite important. And feel free to interrupt me if I tend to speak in acronyms. So feel free to interrupt me and make me like explain things more simply. But essentially, we have a procedure in place that allows us to very easily look at a site, take its top, what we call pillar content, and give it a grade as to how well it's siloed and how well it's interlinked and how much growth opportunity exists by us sort of applying that procedure and, siloing it as best as we can, right? And then the last part on growth, which is, it's also part of conversion rate optimization, is looking at high traffic pages that are not being monetized properly. And almost every business has this.
Yep.
So, and I think that goes without saying, we're looking at a business right now, their top 3 pages are, have the lowest RPV because they're not monetizing it the way they should, right? They're literally just monetizing it on advertising. when they could be making probably an RPV of more than 10x if they monetize with proper affiliate.
Right. And RPV, of course, stands for revenue per visitor. And why is this such an important metric to understand?
I mean, it's math. So if this page in general, and this page is getting about 60,000 visitors a month, its RPV right now is 3 cents, right? So it's not making a great deal of money. It's like two grand or something. If its RPV is what it should be, which is closer to 40 cents, you can do the math, right? The business will be making a lot more money, 25K a month off that one page. On the backlink growth side, what we look at is something I called a thirst analysis, which is basically how hungry or how thirsty for link juice are your top pages. And basically that's a very in-depth analysis of how much more traffic could you get if they were ranking better, and how many more links would you actually need to make them rank better, right? So what it comes down to is essentially saying, like, what is your revenue per link, per potential link, and so we go over that, very in depth.
Gotcha.
And as an example, you may find that a single page, again, if you're ranked number 1, you have zero thirst, right? It's only preventative maintenance to link build that page. However, if you're ranked number 4 and we do an analysis of, the competitors who are ranked above you, and they're not Wikipedia or things that you just cannot usurp, and we realize, if we just probably sent, a few links to this page, as well as, let's say, a few dozen links to the actual root domain as a whole, there's a good likelihood we could rank here. Therefore, a link to this page is worth a lot more than a link to this other page where you're, ranked number 2. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know, like, the click-through rate on SERPs, this has changed a bit because I think universal search has made things so different. But on your first sort of standard template, the first result gets about 30 to 40% of the clicks, and the second result gets about 10 to 15. And that goes all the way down to, under 1% for sort of everything between 7 and 10.
So you really want to try to be up in that, like, between 1 and 5.
I mean, really, I would say you want to be between 1 and 3, because there are now so many different personalized SERPs that come up that kind of take some screen real estate away. That being said, so much of stuff is also long tail, which I think is probably a whole other conversation. I mean, so that's it for SEO in terms of how we, a very brief overview on how we sort of do diligence on that traffic channel. For email, email, in my opinion, is by far the best traffic channel that exists. It's platform agnostic. It costs you basically nothing. And most people just don't use it right. When you're doing diligence on email, the main things you're looking at from a risk point of view is like high unsubscribe rates, very low open rates or click rates. That can indicate a very aged list. Too frequent email frequency is a problem, and also too infrequent of an email frequency in combination with a low open rate is actually a big problem as well, because we've had businesses where you buy them, they might have a very large list, and then you email them, and there's so many because they haven't been emailed in ages, there's so many unsubscribes
right,
or spam complaints that, if you're using a email marketing tool, they may shut you out. They may just close the account, or they might, literally purge it.
Yeah. What would you say is the spectrum there of too infrequent versus too frequently? Too
frequently, I would say, is generally speaking, is probably sending emails every day. It really depends. It's totally fine to have an autoresponder that exists for a period of time and sends emails every day. If you're a daily deal type of site, it's probably fine to send it once a day, or else you're not daily. Too infrequent is probably less frequently than once a month. In fact, at this point, I'd probably say even once a month is too infrequent. People are just getting so many emails, they won't remember who you are.
Yep, makes sense.
Also, when looking at it, you want to make sure that the opt-ins aren't spammy, right? And getting artificially high conversion rates. and that they're not violating CAN spam or any other type of email compliance. There's unsubscribe links, there are addresses, there are phone numbers, etc. And that when they, the way they're asking for your email, what they're delivering is what they're sort of promising to give. If they are violating any of those things, I would probably look at the existing email channel as close to worthless, and look at it more as like the potential to grow that email channel in the right ways. And then in terms of growth diligence for email, there's always a huge amount of opportunity here. I think this is probably the greatest place of opportunity. And that's mainly when list expansion is very low, a lack of autoresponders, a lack of segmentation. If you have a business that's selling tiles, right, you should know that a percentage of your business is going to be customers who are doing their bathrooms, a percentage will be contractors, and a percentage might be like designers. You should have that segmented. You should have a separate list for each.
Yep.
Low email frequency, lack of offers, that type of thing is also, a very large piece of growth potential. And I do have some, I guess some metrics that I think people should look at, which is a business, let's say a business that's getting the majority of its traffic from Google. If you have a decently designed and targeted sort of blanket opt-in to your email, let's say it might be a pop-up that happens 30 seconds after your second page view, something like that. You should be able to get 1% to 2% conversion rates to email, right? Meaning if you get 100,000 visitors a month, you should be able to get 1% to 2% of them, which is like 1 to 2,000, I guess. If you have a content upgrade, which is basically a specific opt-in that's written for a specific landing page, right? So let's say you have, let's say you have a site on Blue Widgets, right? Or you have a site on widgets and you have a landing page that's getting 10,000 visitors a month specifically related to Blue Widgets under $500, right? That opt-in, if you create a content upgrade that, let's say gives people a buying guide around it, or, gives people a calculator, gives people like a really useful, PDF or printable thing, you should be able to get opt-in rates between, let's say 5 and 15%. So that's a huge, most sites are not doing that. And that's a huge piece of growth potential. And one of the things that we always did with Wired, and one of the things we continue to do with Kingmakers businesses we buy, is the first thing I look at is Google is inherently risky as a traffic source because it's you're relying on this black box that you have no control over. So how long would it actually take me to replace the revenue that we're earning through Google by simply moving all the traffic over to email? And most businesses should be able to do it within 18 months to 2 years.
I like it. So best case, you're increasing your revenue by 100%. Worst case, you've totally replaced it.
Exactly. And maybe something terrible happens and, 6 months down the road, you tank and you've only replaced a portion of it. You still at least replace a portion of it. And that's very unlikely to happen, but not impossible.
Yep.
There are obviously many other traffic channels. I'm not going to cover everything here. I'm mainly going to cover the stuff that I have experience in and I like. I would say there's like special use case platforms like Amazon FBA. So if you own and have a physical product, just ranking on Amazon. AdWords, and that only is applicable if you have high RPVs. Same with Facebook paid traffic, only applicable if you have high RPVs. And then finally, affiliate. So basically, if you have high RPVs and you have an affiliate manager with strong relationships, or you're close to someone who could be an affiliate manager, you can bring a lot of traffic in that way.
Makes sense.
Anything I can clarify on the traffic side?
No, I think that was a great overview, and appreciate the teaching there. But let's definitely move on to monetization methods now, kind of the second component to websites here.
Sure. So with monetization methods, again, I'll organize sort of worst to best. And basically here you're organizing it by RPV, by revenue per visitor. So I'm going to go over just like 6 monetization methods. Obviously, there's a lot more. But basically, I'll just list them here from worst to best, you have advertising, affiliate, physical products, direct lead gen, SaaS, or other forms of monthly recurring revenue, and info product as the top. And we'll go over sort of each of these, why I think they're better or worse. So for starting with ad networks, basically ad networks are very simple. They're by far the simplest to implement in that you don't actually have to do anything. You literally just put JavaScript code on your page and suddenly you're monetizing. If you want to improve your RPV, it's a very simple formula. You either expand your page views per visitor, your sessions per user, or your revenue per 1,000 impressions. That's basically all you can do. Ad networks also have within them their own tiers, which all sort of go from worst to best. And so like the worst of that would be just entirely like third-party controlled ad network like AdSense. Next would probably be partner managed ad inventory, meaning you're working with a partner, an ad partner that's taking a percentage of the sales, but they manage the contracts and they manage everything. And then the best of those within ad networks is direct ad sales, where you actually hold the relationships with existing clients. So this will have the highest RPVs. In some cases, and actually in many cases, this can work with other monetization methods in the sense that a lot of the time the advertisers are paying for brand, they're not paying for click, meaning you can have ads for people that sort of give them the brand awareness, but you can still monetize with affiliate within the content.
And the advertiser's not going to get angry at you, essentially.
Exactly. Well, they're happy because most of the time, a lot of the time these advertisers are more, let's say B2B manufacturers, right? Like Intel might be an advertiser, but Intel is not selling B2C, right? So if you're promoting, if you have a tech site and you're promoting like CPUs, right? Intel's CPUs or whatever, and you're also monetizing by sending leads to Newegg or Amazon or something like that, Intel's happy, right? Because you're helping them sell more Intel CPUs. If your advertiser is Newegg's not going to be happy about that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I can go, if we have the time, I'm going to go over this quickly. If we have the time, we can dig into some of the actual diligence that I actually ask for each of these monetization methods. So we actually have this, I think you've probably spoken about it, but we have this diligence calculator that we built in-house. And the latest version of it, which is sort of in alpha right now, is actually you basically select when you look at a business, you select your traffic channels and your monetization methods, and it actually spits out all the questions for our team to ask and answer. And then based on those answers, it automatically grades, and it automatically points out anything, we call them red alerts with the business. And along with those red alerts, it actually gives advice as to how to structure an offer to mitigate certain risks. So I'm sure we'll go over that in a future episode. But let me just go over this quick, and if you have questions on the diligence side, we can shoot into it. So next is affiliate. For those that don't know, affiliate is basically when you're promoting someone else's offer through an affiliate program. Generally speaking, your RPVs here are a lot higher. In some cases, they can actually go higher than some of the other methods we're talking about, but it's really dependent on the business. After affiliate, we have physical product. Physical products meaning you actually own the product. You're not just like drop shipping. Drop shipping is a form of affiliate. This is more capital intensive. It's interesting in the sense that as a monetization method, it opens up traffic channels, right? So it gives you Amazon, it gives you e-commerce, it gives you a bunch of different things. Why I kind of don't put it as high as some of the others is that it is more capital intensive. Supply chain management's a real pain. Customer service can be a real pain. So I don't put it as high as the next one, which would be lead gen. So lead gen, there's often, I call it direct lead gen because lead gen is often affiliate. But when there's in spaces where there's no clear winner for a lead gen affiliate program, you can find, and we've done this multiple times, you can find and nurture relationships with service providers as well as basically create the systems to track and qualify leads, and then bill your customers. This is a bit of work, but you lose the middleman. That middleman usually takes 50% or so margin, and then you have the ability to actually create your own affiliate network for the space, which is like a whole other business for you. I actually know a guy who created an affiliate program for his own use in a finance space, and then basically charged all of the future affiliates of that program 1% of their sales for using the affiliate program, and the dude made millions. It's continuing to make millions for doing nothing.
That's incredible. You had another story too about a pretty niched down website, or somebody you worked with, right? It's like French nail salons or something like that.
Oh yeah, Max. Yeah, it's like the most niche business in the world. It was a French business, and I don't know the words in French, but basically it was nail salon schools in France, and there was a surprising amount of traffic for it, and he had an AdSense site on it. And he was actually in Mexico at the time, and I was kind of just giving him advice on, why don't you try to do lead gen with it? And I think the AdSense site was making like 200 or 300 euros a month. And within about 2 to 3 months, he'd signed up a couple schools. Like, he just gave them their first sort of 2 weeks of leads for free, which is sort of a common thing to do. But I think he was using like Thrive leads and just sending them basically Google Sheets with like leads. It was pretty ghetto. But the business went up to like almost 10K euro, like literally almost like 50x.
That's incredible.
Okay, and then after that we have what I call SaaS or productized services, or generally speaking, MRR, like monthly recurring revenue, with basically a low cost of sales. So obviously that's software as a service. That's a lot of productized services that have low cost of sales. The lifetime values here are super high, and they're high enough to open up a whole bunch of traffic channels for you, like paid or whatever. If you were to sell a business that has SaaS, multiples are often higher. You get it large enough, and you can sell it on a multiple revenue. Cons are that it's a lot more work to run a SaaS business. I would actually say anyone who's looking at acquiring a SaaS business, they should be looking at deals that are large enough to actually support a separate product person and marketing person. Like, they should not assume that they themselves are able to do both product and marketing unless they've done both at the same time before. And they should, or if they're not the ones planning to do it, or if they're buying a business and it's coming with staff, that staff needs to have a separate product person and a separate marketing person.
That's a good point.
Otherwise, one of those two things, or probably both of those two things, are not going to be done well. And then finally, my favorite way of sort of monetizing is info products. This could be in the form of either monthly recurring memberships. Obviously, there's no cost of sales here, though your churn tends to be a bit higher and the ticket price a bit lower, or courses, specifically like higher ticket courses. I'm talking like $1,000 and above. They're probably the strongest LTVs. They're much simpler to manage than, let's say, a SaaS business. There are ways that you can also create this very, very cheaply. In fact, there's ways you can be paid to create this. So our go-to is generally, buying a business that has, some of those tier 1 traffic channels I talked about, whether it's, all get like SEO and email, or it's SEO and we're going to implement the email right away. And then ideally it's monetized as badly as possible on the monetization side. So ideally it's monetized by AdSense, and we can go in and basically immediately either monetize with affiliate or lead gen, or we can actually look at creating an info product right away. Info products also open up webinars. I think you should probably get Adam on here to talk about webinars.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Adam's a guy we work with to do webinars for a lot of our businesses, and he loves webinars. Yeah, so do you want me to dig in more on any of that, or are there any specific questions?
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless you feel like there's anything else to speak to in regards to just our preferred acquisitions as Kingmakers and what you're personally looking for. I know you just touched on that a bit, but if there's any other detail there, go ahead.
The preference is always to stick to what we know, right? So with Wired, we got a lot of businesses, and we realized like our wheelhouse really was SEO mainly SEO with affiliate. And in some cases, well, for me personally, I've actually done a lot of info product, and I've done a lot of SaaS separately. So by sticking to what we know, I really tend to prefer to buy businesses that are SEO based. If they're PPC based, or if they're like, Facebook organic based, I won't do them unless the partner we're working with has direct experience. And then it would more be, I'm relying on the partner to sort of maintain that aspect while I sort of bring in SEO as a growth channel for that business. And in terms of monetization, and obviously email, everything we do, every business we touch, first thing we do is we, put in good content upgrades, and we start, put in a good email responder, autoresponder, segment the lists, and, immediately try to, like I said, basically replace the income that SEO is bringing with email.
Yep.
And then in terms of monetization, I'll look at anything. Obviously the best thing in the world would be to be able to buy an AdSense site and immediately convert it to like an info product and like lead gen hybrid or something like that. But I would say, because monetization methods are a lot cheaper to add or to create yourself, it is better to.
It's about the traffic.
Yeah, to buy the traffic, but also to find, go lower in the tier list on the monetization method. That's not to say we won't buy a SaaS business. That's because again, SaaS is actually quite hard to make. It'll take you 6 months and probably cost you $50,000 to actually have a decent SaaS business built out. And likewise, lead gen, like direct lead gen, is fairly hard to make. Like it'll take a smart person probably, at least 3 months of full-time work to figure that out. And you could fail, right?
Right. Yeah, makes lots of sense. Do you have any other parting advice before we jump off here for people listening who are trying to determine the right type of online business model to get into?
I would say stick with what you know. Or if you're working like buying with a partner like we do, stick with, what you know as a group. Do your diligence. Like, the way we separate diligence really is, risk-based. If I just buy this thing and I don't touch it, how likely is it to fail, right? So if you don't have your own sort of calculator or your own system to actually calculate that, then you probably shouldn't buy a business, or you should work with other people who have it. Simply because, every business has a risk, and you're not really able to make a true apples to apples comparison if you're shopping around on multiple deals. And don't focus heavily on the growth side. Like I would say, if something doesn't pass the risk analysis, don't look any further. Growth is great, but things not falling is much better.
Agreed. Sounds good, man. Well, folks, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most, and today you've been hanging out with Hayden and Kylan, learning how to build your business empire. For more information or to get in touch, head over to kingmakers.co, and always remember to build beyond business.